Alright. Can't remember where the last video left off, but I got the blade pretty shiny. I gotta go back over it and get some of those scratches out that I've made in it inadvertently. But now I'm working on the handles here. I've got the rough places smoothed out. That's the blade. Got the rough places smoothed out. And see what I was gonna do? I'll put some threads down at the bottom of this thing to attach a handle to. It's 1/4 coarse threads. I'm working with some sandpaper trying to get that to look like that. So we'll work on that. In July of 1865, there was a little agency created within the federal government called the Secret Service. Now we all know about the Secret Service today, how it, what their duties are today and everything. And up until 2003, I'm sure you probably already know this too, but up until 2003, the Secret Service was a part of the Treasury Department. Now, the reason that they were started was because in 1865, in the waning days of the Civil War, it was determined, get this over here, that the Confederate banks that were printing up Confederate money had the ability to print up dollars in the North. They could print counterfeit currency. They had all the ability to, So they had to develop some sort of agency that could come around and had very broad investigative powers, had very broad arrest powers, and had an unlimited jurisdiction. So they created the Secret Service. Now, the Secret Service was not created to protect the president. Matter of fact, it didn't even start protecting the president until after William McKinley was killed in 1901. After William McKinley was assassinated, Congress made a formal request that the Secret Service, which already had all the investigative powers, arrest powers, and unlimited jurisdiction, be the ones to actually protect the president. And actually, one of the first Secret Service agents was serving Theodore Roosevelt, was actually killed in the line of duty. He wasn't assassinated, he was just part of a wreck that happened whenever he was protecting President Roosevelt. Well, they create this little agency, the Secret Service, and Abraham Lincoln, who is in Richmond at the time, is actually able to get a Confederate note, printed from one of the banks there in Richmond. And he sees how easy it is, so he had a large influence in the creation of the Secret Service. Now, this was in end of March, early April of 1865. Congress passes the legislation. All it needs is a signature. But it doesn't get signed until July the 5th of 1865. The reason it was so late in getting signed is because it was on the president's desk, President Lincoln's desk, waiting to be signed when he left for Ford's Theater in April of 1865 on that fateful night that he would be assassinated himself. Kind of odd. Kind of odd that the last piece of legislation that he would have signed, or should have signed, let me put it like that, was the creation of an agency that one day would actually be in charge of protecting the president from assassination. But it stayed on his desk. Andrew Johnson signed it actually into law. in July of 1865. They had other fish to fry. That's why I didn't get done so quick. Okie dokie, let's see. I got it about as even as I'm gonna get it and about as shiny as I'm gonna get it. Let y'all see something though. See, it's probably on the other side. Oh yeah, here's one of them. See that right there? That's a crack in the metal. What I intended to do was thread the handle and screw the handle on. But I think in the process of me making these threads, it might have cracked the metal. I don't know if it was there before I started cleaning it up or not. There's one on this handle, and there's one on this side too. I just gotta find it. Where are you tonight? Why did you leave me here all alone? Let's see. Maybe you can see it right there. I don't think it's a crack so much as it is a, well, there it is right there. You see that little spot right there where it's kind of cracked all the way up? So what I'm probably going to have to do, I don't know if I'm going to use a threaded piece or not for this piece, for the handles. But I'm probably, oh, there it is, right there. Let's see. Right there, you see that crack right there? This is the other side, the handle. So I'm gonna probably have to use epoxy. Originally, what it was just, the handle was just driven on there, and it had a, the end of this piece right here was flared, so the handle couldn't come back off. Well, what I'm probably gonna have to do is use some epoxy. I don't know if I'm going to use the threads or not, to thread a handle on there or not. I just don't know yet. Probably not. I'll probably use those threads for the epoxy and let them sink into those threads really well, because those threads don't really match these threads that well. So I'll probably just use epoxy, and the epoxy will heal the crack, and it will actually hold the handle better too, I think. But anyway, I got the handles pretty close to the blade, and in sharpening the blade, I mean in sanding the blade down with sandpaper, this sucker is sharp. I had to wear my gloves, right? See my gloves? I had to wear my gloves on my left hand while I was holding it to kind of actually keep from cutting my finger. That son of a gun is sharp. Right there. This is going to be a handy dandy little tool. I've never had a draw knife, and I got a use for it right now. You see my reflection in it. This sucker is sharp and shiny. This is pretty. Alright. Alright, I got this little piece of square stock here I'm fixing to cut out. Make a 5-inch handle. That's about how long that shank is. So I'm going to make a 5-inch handle. I'm going to go ahead and cut the pieces and kind of measure them up, maybe trim them up some. I'm going to try to use my lathe thingy, not real, to kind of smooth it out this time. But I'm going to try to whittle this down to a workable handle and then try to get it, try to mount it onto that shank. If you look at my saw, my little box saw here, see all that stuff on it? That is beeswax. I will take a saw after I'm done with it and I'll rub it down with this little beeswax cube, this little white beeswax cube, and it will make that sucker in that box, that miter box right there, cut just as smooth as can be. So rub it on the teeth pretty good and on the side. Man, it does wonders. I couldn't believe that when I first tried it out. I thought, man, this is really cool. So I just rubbed some white beeswax on it, and it makes a pretty cut. There's no hang-ups, no catches or anything in it. It makes a really pretty cut.